Hi everyone, my name is Harsh and today we are going to talk about offensive and scope-based recon. Just to quickly give you an idea about who am I and what is my background, I currently work as a cybersecurity analyst at Detox Technology. I am a Cyanacred team member, Buckout MVP for quarter 1 and 2 and top 150 in the leaderboard. I have authored multiple books upon hacking. I am a blogger, sometimes I speak about the security things and a lifelong learner. So the agenda for today would be to quickly discuss about Recon 101, what Recon is, why we do Recon, the scope-based Recon methodology. Then we will be discussing small scope recon, medium scope recon, large scope recon. Further, we will be looking at the offensive recon tactics, Project Bheem, which is a scope-based reconnaissance tool, and some of the QAs that you can ask. Okay, so just quickly giving an overview about what is Recon. Recon is basically a way to discover and create a better attack surface. This is something that we are going to look at in the entire presentation. Recon is not about finding security issues directly. It's about increasing the attack surface. The more attack surface you will have, you can generate more attack vectors and ultimately leading yourself to more security issues. Now, from both pen testing as well as the bug bounty perspective, if you will look at the reconnaissance, it plays a really important role. Now, recon is again like looking at a very less traveled road. It allows you to get more success about the target that you are currently pen testing. It allows you to dig the assets of your target to the deepest point possible. Because, for example, initially, if you are given a target, say a.target.com or say b.target.com, now if you will look only at the b.target.com, you might look at a very small attack surface. But if you will go again to enumerate subdomains or enumerate the more assets that are related to b.target.com or a.target.com, you are actually looking for those untraveled roads where other researchers or other pen tester might not be looking. Again, recon is not equals to finding security issues, but probably of getting these security issues. Now, there are some of the myths going on regarding recon that people say that recons directly lead you to the bugs. It's more of the about manual approach. It is all about time-consuming process, and recon is usually about subdomain enumeration or who is port scanning, fuzzing, etc. So quickly going one by one, I will be talking about those myths. So recon is basically all about asset discovery, which ultimately leads you to increase the attack surface. Once you have the increased attack surface, you can now like point towards multiple attack vectors and again go for finding some good bugs. Now, when people say that recon is all about manual approach, the best way to perform recon is to use a hybrid approach, which involves both the automated as well as the manual approach. So when we say the automation might gives you a lot of false positive or true positives. It is always essential to make sure that you validate those issues before reporting to the client or in any bug bounty program that you are currently working upon. Now, there are certain recon process which require the manual intervention, such as Google docking, such as looking deep into GitHub or into the dark web for the leaked credentials or the leaked databases of the target organization. So these things sometimes require the manual intervention, and you can get things results by doing manually better. People say that recon is a time-consuming process, but I would say if you are doing it properly, if you have a proper methodology in your mind and you are automating the things right way, you can save a lot of times, which we will see in further slides that how we can perform a recon in a very right way and save a lot of time. Now, recon is like the subset. It's all a subset, like the subdomain enumeration, who is port scanning. They are subset of a recon. Recon, according to me, is all about how much creative you can be to identify the assets. It can be about looking at the dark web or deep web for the exposed credentials or the exposed data, because sometimes on the dark web form you find there are a lot of people who are selling the data of the organization. As a security researcher, as a pen tester, your job is to make sure that the organization is secure, there is no leakage at all. Now, let's quickly jump upon the scope-based recon. We will quickly talk about what is a scope-based recon and why we need scope-based recon. So scope-based recon is simply a methodology which divide how to perform recon when a specific set of scope is provided to you. So when I say specific set of scope, we usually divide scope into three categories. One is small scope, medium scope, and large scope. We will look at each of these scope in the next slides. Now, When we say small scope, it's simply like a very few application or few URLs are given to you. And say, for example, https://a.target.com or https://sandbox.target.com is given to you. Now, that is a restricted scope, a small scope. You have to look for things very much which are related to this particular URL itself, like https://sandbox.target.com. When I say medium scope, it's usually referred to like star.target.com, or there are multiple applications or multiple subdomains allowed, or there might be some scope which is not as restricted as the small scope was. Now, when we talk about large scope, we basically talk about everything could be in scope. It can be like a subsidiary, it can be an acquisition. You can look for the GitHub, you can go to the dark web, you can go anywhere. It's all about like looking for the assets by any way possible. Now, if you're performing scope-based recon, basically you know that what exactly you have to perform when a specific set of scope is provided to you. Ultimately, you save a lot of time. You know that what you exactly want to look for and what you will be looking and what assets you will get at the end of the process. You can further easily write your own recon automation. You can simply create some short scripts for all the tools, toolings, and the various process involved in the particular scope set. When you look for a particular scope, you have a very less chance to submit out of scope issues and vulnerabilities. This is specifically for the bug bounty hunters, because a lot of time people do recon on small scope and they ultimately end up finding out of scope issues, hurting their reputation or the points. Now, just like other security methodologies, it enables you to perform a better recon, because recon is these days very trendy, and I would say that you have to be very much, process oriented when you are doing reconnaissance, because it allows you to make sure that you are looking at the right thing and you are being in the right scope. Now, let's just quickly let me give you an idea about all these three scope, what they contains basically. As I said earlier, that in small scope, it might be some single URLs, it might be a sandbox, QA or staging environments. When we talk about medium scope, it might be like star.target.com, which you usually see in the bug bounty programs. But when we do pen testing, we usually see the small scope, because usually we have the sandbox environments or QA staging environments with us. Large scope recon is something where organization says that we want to get tested for everything which is related to us. It can be a subsidiary, it can be an acquisition, it can be anything for which we hold a copyright. So we need to ensure that what scope has been provided to us. Every pen test engagement, there is a scoping documentation or scoping call happens, so you know that okay, which scope you are currently looking at. For every bug bounty program, there are several scopes already defined, well defined for every platform, from HackerOne to Bothra to Synac. Okay, so now let's quickly look at what all things we need to look when we are provided with small scope recon. Now, whenever you are given with a limited set of application or URLs, the first thing that you can go and check is for the directory brute forcing. You can use the tools like dirt search, dirt buster, and other tools as per your preference to now brute force the directory. Now, as I go for directory brute forcing, what I do is basically I first look at what the services are running on. So, for example, the server is Apache, or say server is running IIS. I will ensure that I am adding those directories which are specifically related to IIS. Now, it allows me to see that I am hitting the right points and I might not miss something obvious. Now, once you do service enumeration, it gives you a better idea of the application, that what kind of services the application is hosting. Is it some vulnerable server? If it's a vulnerable server, the next thing I will do is to look for CVEs. CVEs are basically the already identified vulnerabilities on those projects which are used widely. Now, so for example, there is an Apache server which is vulnerable. It's using a vulnerable version, say version 2.0.0, which might be vulnerable to an attack called Apache options bleed. Now, what I have to do is I have to go to the exploit DB or the GitHub to check if there is any exploit available, and I can simply use that exploit to check if the particular server is vulnerable actually or is patched. Right? There might be certain scenarios where the server version would be less, or would be the vulnerable version, but it might be patched, because sometimes developers require that, okay, we need this specific version of the server. Further, I will perform the port scanning for all the ports from port like 1 to 65535, and like every port in the scope. Okay, now the port scanning sometimes gives you some of the services. So recently in one of the pen testing engagement on the port 7070, I found a Kubernetes dashboard which was unauthenticated. and now I can do a lot of malicious stuff with that as an attacker. So always make sure that you are performing port scanning. Broken link hijacking is again something similar to your subdomain takeover, subdomain enumeration attacks. Right, what you basically do is there might be some social media link or some third party link which are not properly pointed, and if the link is like not properly pointed, say I there was an Instagram link in a CEO's profile on the target website. Now when you click on this, it says that the page not found, and you see that okay, there might be ABCD as a username which is not claimed by anyone. You can basically go and claim that ABCD on the Instagram, and now that link will point to the attacker control page. Again, it's a really good issue to look for. GS file for hard-coded APIs and secrets. Often developer leaves the secrets such as Firebase key or some API keys which might be used for the malicious purposes. There are like certain API key which follow your paper use model. So you can also abuse that paper use model to cost them some revenue or something like that. Okay, now parameter discovery is again one of the things where you can use tools like Arjun or Param Spider, Param Miner, where you can find out if there are some hidden parameters or if there are some parameters which actually are reflecting somewhere in the application. Then you can go for injection attacks, or you can try for these client-side attacks such as cross-site scripting. Wayback history and wayback URL is something that you can do, but this is again depends if you are getting something related to the scope URL only. If you are going out of the scope URL, again wayback history won't be that much useful. Google dorking is something that, okay, so for example, the application is using some UUID to identify the users. Now, if you can use the Google Doc to identify UUIDs for other users of in-scope targets, that might be useful. Otherwise, Google Doc are usually not that much useful for the small scope recon. Further, you can use tools like GAU, or you can use tools like wayback URLs to find out all the URL history from the Wayback Archives and the Alien Vault archives. And further, you can use GF patterns to extract those URLs which might be potentially vulnerable to, say, XSS or SSRF attacks. Further, you can use some of the automation scripts. So, for example, I used GAU for finding some of the endpoints for a target called https your www.target.com. Further, I use GF pattern for cross-site scripting, and I use Delphox to perform automated cross-site scripting attacks to see if I can find. Again, I prefer to look for both manual and automation approach for the attacks like cross-site scripting. But again, sometimes you can find a lot of issues just by automating stuff in proper way. Now, when we are provided with the medium scope recon, only few things changes, which we can look at this particular part. The thing changes are like subdomain enumeration. You can basically try to enumerate subdomains for target.com. There might be hundreds or thousands of subdomain enumeration possible. You can then further check for the subdomain takeover on the enumerated subdomains using tools like Subject. You can check for the misconfigured third-party services, like there might be some services like, say, Firebase instance or some buckets like this AWS S3 buckets are pointed which are not configured properly, and there might be a possibility to take over them. Again, most of the other things like directory enumeration, broken link hijacking, they stay same for the medium scope recon as well. The one more thing which get added to this is internet search engine discovery, where you can use tools like Census, c0c0n, Spice to again look for the new assets related to star.target.com or star.your whatever target is. Okay, we will look at the Spice in demo session, that how you can use it, because c0c0n and Census, they already have a lot of documentation and tooling available. Spice is a relatively new tool compared to c0c0n and Census. Now, this is something large scope recon looks like, and this is the favorite part I usually go for, because in my current company, we usually test everything for a client, from testing for the dark web, doing the intelligence of the dark web, to looking for the data leakage and going for the reconnaissance and everything. So we usually are totally provided the freedom to look anything which might be related to our clients. So in that scenario, the first thing that we do is we track and trace every possible signature of the target application. What we basically do is on the day one of pen testing, we enumerate every asset of the application possible, and on the say date 30th or day 40th, we again follow the same process to see if there are some new targets popping up in the list. Because what happens sometimes that you will notice that every day new targets or new subdomains might be added, or there might be some new GitHub repositories might get pushed every single day. So this is something that we do. We track and trace every possible signature of the target application. We go to like google.com, or we go to every possible search engine on the surface web to the dark web to see if we can get something of the target organization. We look for subsidiaries and acquisitions to the maximum depth. When I say maximum depth, so say there's a target.com. Now there is a subsidiary of target.com called targeta.com. Now targeta.com also has a subsidiary called targetb.com. Now, as a pen tester, I will look to the targetb.com as well. I will start from target and will go deep down possible in the list of subsidiaries and acquisitions. So make sure that you just are not looking for the first degree of subsidiary. You are going to the maximum degree of subsidiaries and acquisitions. Further, you can go for DNS and SSL certificate enumeration to again figure out more assets, like in terms of domain name. You can go for this ASN and IP space enumeration. You can look for the IPs which might be in the scope, and again perform port scanning on those IPs. And we will look at the tool Spice, where the IP space enumeration becomes very much easier. The rest of the things are mostly same. The one more thing get added over here is the GitHub Reconnaissance. What I usually do is I take a list of all the subdomains, and then one by one I use a tool called GitHound to perform GitHub Reconnaissance. I will again show you these things in the demo section, that how I perform Recon in the practical thing, and how I keep a track of everything that I'm performing as a part of Recon, both for bug bounty as well as the pen testing perspective. Now, let's quickly see the offensive come smart recon tactics, that what you should usually do to make your reconnaissance process very much fast and efficient, apart from the scope-based recon. Okay, so first thing is that as soon as you get a scope, make a quick image in your mind that what scope definitions are, and which scope out of the three, small, medium, or large, you want to opt for. So for example, now the scope-based recon says that, okay, you are going for the medium scope reconnaissance. Quickly create a script for automating the scope-based recon, or you can already create a pre-existing scripts. This is what I do. We created a tool for managing this. Create a script for automating scope-based recon. We will look at in a while. Further, you can run those automation script over the cloud to ensure that speed up the process, because sometimes when you use the Kali Linux or other operating system as per your preference, along with the burp suite, and a lot of processes are going on, it slows down everything. It takes a lot of load on the CPU. So what you can do is basically you can purchase a low configuration cloud server to run all the automation scripts over the cloud. Further, while the automation is running, manually look for GitHub and search engine docking. Go to the dark web and look for every possible leakage related to the target organization. For the bug bounty purpose, the dark web or the deep net are like not an actual place to look for, but as a pen testing engagement, and where we say that we follow a model where we ensure our clients that your data is not leaked anywhere, we for sure look for the dark web and deep web for every possible thing. Now, you can also create the cron jobs or schedulers to rerun the specific scripts that you have created in the step 2 and using on the step 3 to make sure that you can identify asset each and every time. Further, simply implement the alerts. So once the script is finished with one target and reconnaissance of the one target, it will simply make a push notification for you on the Slack or a preferred bot channel, and it will allow you to quickly, okay, now the automation is finished. I can go and manually check the automation, what results I got from automation. Now we will talk about Project Bheem. Project Bheem is again nothing fancy. It was basically created as a hobby project. I used it for my own reconnaissance. In one of my talk, people saw the script and they wanted it to be live for the public, so I made it open source. Project Bheem is basically a simple bash wrapper around the pre-existing tools to implement the scope-based recon. This was basically an idea to implement the scope-based recon. There are multiple tools for the reconnaissance. There is no use if we are launching a tool with the same features. So what we did, what we innovated more, that we added feature called small, medium, and large, where you have to specify that which scope you want to recon for, and it will perform scope based recon with the parallel processing, which is again a feature that is in beta mode right now, but it's working fine so far. So it will, so for example, you have 100 domains, target 1 to target100.com, and you want to perform reconnaissance, say large scope reconnaissance. It will perform parallel processing, which make it faster. It's again written in bash, so it's easy to modify as per your needs. It's not using any Python code for the wrappers and everything. It's totally written in the bash. Currently, it allows you to perform subdomain enumeration and takeovers, IP space discovery, reverse OS, domain resolution, GitHub search, template-based scanning via nuclei, directory fuzzing, request smuggling, taking screenshot, URL extractions, and some other functionalities. So we will now quickly look at the demo of the Project Bheem. I will be quickly just pushing my VPS to the screen. Okay. Now let's just quickly see what Bheem do. I'm just first of all removing a target that I have already tested with the Bheem. Okay. So now I have every single tool added to the environment variable, so I can run it from anywhere. Just if you say Bheem, it will just pop up this window. And when you say Bheem-H, it will allow you to say every possible uses options. Now I will navigate you through each and every of them. Now say you want to perform a small scope recon on a single domain. So say the domain is pandora.ru, and you want to perform a small scope recon. So for inputting a single domain, we use -d along with -s for the small scope switch. You have to just run it. It will take a few minutes because we are just looking at a specific domain only, so it won't do a lot of things. Once it's done, you will see something like this. In a recon folder, there will be a folder name of your target, say pandora.ru in this particular case. Under pandora.ru, you will be able to see multiple files. Say if you will go and say cat_nuclei, it contains all the results of the nuclei. Right, so currently it's saying missing HSTS header on directly. So for the multiple subdomain, it might throw multiple results. Right now, again, it will go for say say pandora.ru, then say URLs. It's again a result of wayback URLs in Go, and you can see a lot of URLs over here. And further, you can use GF patterns to say I want to check for SQL injection on this URL. So you can simply go here and say GF and say then SQL, or say cross-site scripting over here, and it will just give you all those domains which might be vulnerable to cross-site scripting, like for having the certain parameters, say multiple parameters. Like this, you can just quickly use the existing input that you got from Project Bheem's output and use it as an input for the other tools that you're having. Let's see other scopes. Now I'm again going to remove this. We are not performing recon on any private program as of now. So to ensure that the program that we are choosing are having a responsible disclosure in the bug bounty program, so that things are legalized. Okay. Now let's say I want to perform a medium scope recon or say large scope recon. So what I will do is I will say -u, because I want to give a wildcard domain in this case, and say I will take an example of stackpart.com, which is a public program on Bugcrowd. Then I will say -l. Now it will first start performing subdomain scanning and resolving. Once the subdomain scanning and resolving is performed, then it will start the parallel processing feature. It will take a while. By the time it happens, I will just quickly walk you through the Spice tool. Okay. So quickly walking you through the Spice. Spice is basically a cybersecurity search engine which allows you to find any technical information about the internal asset of any organization. All you have to do is to just say your whatever target is, and it will give you a very much beautiful UI where every result will be listed over here from the email address. You can check those email address on the GitHub for any info disclosure. You can look for the IPv4 host over here. You can enumerate the complete ranges. Further, you can see the related organization, the subsidiary part for the stack path. Also, the one of the good feature they have is this CVE search, which I pretty much like. So go to advanced search, click on the CV search, and choose any CV. Say randomly, we choose this CV 2020 11984. Once you click on this and say view details, you will see a very nice definition about the CV and what all the references are, if there is any exploit available. And there is something that we should look at, the vulnerable IPs or the vulnerable domains. So it might be possible that your target is vulnerable to a specific CV, and you can simply just reduce the columns from here. Like, you just want to see the IP host, you can download it and further search it, and match it along with the IPv4 host that you find from the Bheem project. So this is basically about the spice. Now let's get back to Bheem and see if it did something. Okay, so as you can see right now, it finished the subdomain scanning. Now it's performing the ASN to CIDR to IP resolution. Further, it will perform a reverse voice lookup. Now let's see that how results are stored. Okay, so if you now go and see that there are some different files from which are different from the one which saw in the small scope recon. There you can see CIDRs, you can see IPs, then you can see like subds and subdomains. These are the files. So if I go to this particular file called stackpart.com and say this file reverse, sorry, not reverse, the resolved, you will see all the domains resolved to the HTTP and HTTPS format over here. Now, say I want to perform git recon. So let's see if GitHound is present in my VPS. And if yes, we will quickly see that what we can do. Okay, so for this, we will not look at the GitHound. We will look at the other stuff. Let me just quickly navigate through. Okay, perfect. So for the reverse voice lookup, it might take a little while because currently, it will perform a reverse voice upon the CIDRs and the IP ranges. So meanwhile, let's run Bheem on for a medium scope target and see what happens. Again, I will choose a website, say Dell.com, which is again a public program on Bugcrowd. And this time I will choose for the medium scope reconnaissance. Again, it will start from the subdomain scanning and resolving. It will take a while to perform and finish all the the tools which are available from the directory enumeration to everything. Now I will tell you that how we can basically go and tune in Project Bheem. So once you clone it, I will share the GitHub repo link along with the talk description. So we have kept every tool in the folder called Arsenal. It will be the same, it's a hard-coded path. So you have to just simply go to your favorite editor, say Vim or Nano, whatever it is, and say bheem.sh, which is the main file. There are the multiple functions defined. It's all written in the bash. Let's just quickly go where the scope based recon part is now. So for example, if you want to remove a particular part, so for example, from this medium recon, you want to just remove this subdomain takeover thing, you can simply first remove this from the export section. Just simply, just like remove it. And then further from the parallel section, also just remove the subdomain takeover. And now the subdomain takeover won't be a part of your medium scope recon. So this way you can basically add multiple tools and remove the tools which you don't want to include it in the particular process. For example, the large scope recon, you don't want ASN to CIDR or the reverse switch, you can simply comment it out and it won't be performed any longer. So this is basically, you can, modify the Bheem tool as per your need and make it more powerful, which we would also like to see the community contribution to. Okay, so it is again taking a while because there might be possibility of having a lot of assets for the stack path and model. So let's just quickly change the target over here. Apart from that, every script that you will see that is written for the Project Bheem is again a simple bash wrapper, which you can again, add multiple tools to the a particular script. Let's see how you can do that. Again, you have to go to this hard-coded path of Arsenal and say, I want to change something into the resolver, which basically, perform the subdomain scanning and the resolution part. So simply go again to a favorite editor and say resolver.sh. Now, there you will see that there are 3 tools currently included: Subfinder, Asset Finder, and Chaos. Make sure that this particular key is a demo key and it is not valid. This is kept intentionally over here. Now you can, if you want to, simply add a tool, say emas. So what you can simply do is say emas enum. Sorry for the, yeah. So emas enum, then say -d and say $1 for taking domain from the command line input, and then further use this redirection for storing it again to the file, which will be this one, the $dir and $1_subd. Now, the $dir basically is a directory /recon $1. So if you will give del.com, it will create a directory for you named /recon/del.com. Again, it will create a file called /recon in /recon/del.com, that it will create a file named del.com_subd. So you will know that what each file contains. Further, from these, output of these 4 particular tools, we created a unique file which contain all the unique subdomains, because there might be repetition in the tools. Further, we took this file and used HTTPX to simply resolve the subdomains and again store the file uniquely, having all the addresses uniquely into a file called $1_resolved. So this is a basic idea for each and every script, and you will find each and every script working in the same way. There are some tools, pre-existing tools, which are having a little bit of regex and modification to do our work efficiently the way we want. Now, since it's taking time, and I have already given you an idea of like how the arrangement would be. So if so far we did Recon on 3 this particular websites, Dell.com, Pandora, and StackPath. You can easily navigate to each of their website, and everything is like well organized. So if you have, say, if you're doing bug bounty and you have thousands of targets, what you can do is there's an option in Bheem this T, which allows you to give it a list of targets. So for example, you can simply quickly create a list over here, say nano target, and say abc.com or whatever, anything gibberish.com. Now this contains 2 targets. All you have to do is you have to run Bheem with -t flag and give this file name, say target, and give the scope, say I want to perform medium scope reconnaissance, and that's it. It will take the files one by one. Once the subdomain scanning will be finished on abc.com, it will start for the another gibberish the domain that we have entered. So this way it allows you to power up your reconnaissance thing. You can use it with the screen command so that it keeps on running in the background even if your SSH connection terminates. So this is a basic idea about Project Bheem and how to perform better reconnaissance with scope-based recon methodology and offensive recon tactics. Further, if you have any questions, you can ask me anytime. You can reach out to me on the following handles. I am usually available on the Twitter. You can reach out to me. You can write an email to me, and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. With that, thank you so much for providing this opportunity. Thank you, the Red Team Village and the Cocoon, for this opportunity to put all those things forward. Thank you so much.